It's official. The Business Operations Success Seminar is coming February 29, 2020. That's right, Boss 2020 is coming to Dallas, Texas, February 29th. Business owners, you cannot afford to miss this. This is not a pitch from the stage event. You'll hear from attorneys, bankers, wealth managers, CPAs, and more on how to properly form, run, profit, and exit your business. Learn how to secure funding, tax techniques of the wealthy, asset protection, and much more. Pre-sale tickets available now at boss-2020.eventbrite.com. Not in Dallas? You can still benefit. Boss 2020 will be streaming live. Buy your streaming ticket at boss-2020.eventbrite.com. For vendor and sponsor opportunities, dial 510-459-7732. Get behind the shit.
I chose to use Elite 8 tax preparation services was mainly because of the certifications they have received. George and his crew have multiple certifications, and I felt very comfortable in switching from my previous tax preparation company to his company. I have extreme confidence in my tax return this year. His attention to detail was amazing, and I felt like nothing was going to be missed. And with my job and being an independent contractor and being a private business owner, there are so many pieces of the puzzle, and I didn't want any of those things to be missed. And believe me, I believe that they found it. Get behind the shield.
Ready to begin your business? Should you be an LLC or a C corporation? How do you track the cost of goods versus operating supplies? What are your depreciable assets? Are you structured to obtain business credit? Not sure? Get a boss. An individual business operations success suite from Elite 8 Tax and Financial Services will position your business for success and avoid the pitfalls of startups. From registering with your state, operating agreements, bookkeeping, tax filings, and more, Elite 8 Tax and Financial Services can be your growth partner at every level of your business. Schedule your needs assessment today at www.elite8financial.com/boss or by phone at 469-412-0056.
It's official. The business
I think that the greatest value in using Elite 8 would be, well, they took a look at the structure of my business and they decided that an S corporation would be best for me, and got that all set up for me. They also was able to file all my taxes at the end of the year, and they keep all my bookkeeping for me each month. And I think they did a really great job at it. I have confidence in the accuracy of my return because I've used Elite 8 in the past, and I know that they do a great job, and I look forward to them doing a great job in the future. I know they can only get better from
Welcome to Boss Talk Radio, brought to you by Elite 8 Tax and Financial Services, with your host, George Dandridge. The Business Operations Success Suite is the premier business talk radio show, bringing you entrepreneurs and top business leaders across every industry, sharing best practices, success tips, and the real stories behind entrepreneurship. Here's your host, the Texas tax expert, George Dandridge.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Boss Talk Radio. I'm excited about today's show and really just the overall growth of the show, especially since the top of 2020. I want to thank all the guests that's been on so far and all that they've shared, all the knowledge that they've shared unselfishly. And I really hope that you guys are benefiting from this and reaching out to these experts in their industries and really taking advantage of the knowledge that they share. And we're going to keep that trend going with today's show. Our guest today is, the amount of knowledge that this person has, he should be a library in and of itself. But, I was watching the news early this morning, and another major retailer in America is closing hundreds of stores and ending thousands of jobs. The highest level of those employees, they'll get severance and things of that nature. But for everybody else, they're going to kind of rely on unemployment, savings, cash in retirement, things of that nature. And this is the part where where it's raining and those that saved are better off. But here's my question. How many times will this scene play out in this country before you decide to take ownership and not allow your fate to be in the hands of undisciplined corporate bigwigs? Now this is the part where somebody that lacks intestinal fortitude of self-accountability starts whining and said, "But George, everybody isn't made to be a business owner." And if you watched our New Year's show, my tax brother Kamari Ellis told you guys how to get paid off the work of others, using things like fractional ownership and whatnot. But you have to abandon your way of thinking and shift your paradigm about money for that to work. Want to give a shout out to my man Dave Anderson on the launch of Business Bully TV. And I don't know if you guys know Dave. He's a business coach that's been doing phenomenal things in the market. And I remember back when, Dave wanted to save the world and try to help everybody. And then he, I guess, eventually came to the realization that he couldn't allow his greatness to wait for everybody else to get it. See, you don't have to have Oprah money or Tyler money to make those types of decisions. I think Dame Dash is a Dash TV and something like that, and Dave just decided, and he told you guys maybe 2 or 3 years ago, like, don't believe me, just watch. And he's been killing the game, but that's the epitome of ownership. His fate is not allowed to be affected by someone else's actions or inactions. No one else will decide if he eats. And that's what Boss is all about. Boss Talk is all about. The Business Operations Success Suite is here for you guys to give you not only the motivation, but the education to achieve your greatness. And it doesn't mean that you'll be an entrepreneur like myself or whatever. It may mean, buying pieces of stock here and there through the Robin Hoods and things of that nature. But really for you guys to decide for yourself. And in order to do that, you have to figure out how to be your most authentic self. I got a call, I think Sunday. It was Sunday. I was on my way to a Super Bowl party. I got a call from my son, my youngest son, and he said, Dad, you got a second? I am frustrated and confused. And so we had this conversation about his path in college. And I don't know if you guys been following me for a while. My son is into video production and whatnot. So last year, you would have seen me on his birthday, give him his sweatshirts with his company logo and his shoes with his, image and everything on it. He lost his mind, and the thing is that, I couldn't, obviously give him his company at the time, but that's, his 18th birthday gift or whatever. But it's this thing where it wasn't, we all have this thing where some of us are guilty of trying to live vicariously through our kids. Some of us have a thing where, you know, any and everything our kid jumps up and says they want to do, we're, running to the store to make it happen. But your child, what their gifts are, what they're capable of. And when he first got into this thing, like anything I do with my kids, they hate some conversations because I always start with the saying, what's the plan? And if they don't have a detailed plan, I don't let them just run past me with some BS. So what we did, I watched him. I mean, he started with the YouTube thing and just he kept coming with more and more information to the point I was like, man, I don't even know what you're talking about. But, you know, us dads, we got to be superheroes. So I call my man Chris Colbert. I don't know if you guys know Chris. He's a producer down in New Orleans. He's worked in LA, worked on some different things. He's been in the business for well over 25 years. Um, so I say, hey, Chris, my son's got this thing going on or whatever, can you give him some pointers, give him some advice, tell him what he should look into, this, that, and the other. And you had to see the look on my son's face when Chris started telling him about a guy he mentored that went on to become the director for the Black Panther. And he's looking at me like, damn, Pops is connected, but the flip side of that is that it increased his interest in not only doing that, but in having ownership of it. He got it real early. And so, like I was saying last week, when you have a situation like a Kobe Bryant where somebody knows at a young age what they want to do and commit to it, that's where you invest the energy and support, so they can really do that. So he called me and he's telling me about this school. And he's like, my grandmother's getting on me and my sister's getting on me. They want me to go to a 4-year university and this and that and the third and blah, blah, blah. But that's not what I want to do. I want to go to this school that, teaches you about production and so forth and so on. And most parents at this point would have kind of got bent out of shape and wanted to go the school route or whatever. But again, like I've watched him do this. I see how his heart glows behind getting into this or whatever. And I'm like, well, hey, your mom, your sister, and your grandmother, they had a path, they have a life, and they were able to do what they want to do. You can't live life for them. So whatever you choose to do, I'm going to support it. He calls me back Monday, and he's like, hey, Dad, I found the school in Dallas or whatever. Can you take me out there or whatever, so forth and so on. Now, he doesn't know I'm going to be looking into this school, getting information on it, and really deciding if that's the best option. But I'm not going to discourage, the way that he's going because he's in that frame of mind, and I really wish all of my nieces and my other kids, everybody just got it, that thing about ownership or whatever. But that's that on that. I could beat that horse all day. Again, thank you guys for tuning in. So today, for those of you who are in business, or think you have a business or want to be in business, you don't want to miss this segment, because too often what happens is people jump off the porch, and they think the extent of what they need to have a legitimate business is a business card. Or worse, two friends go into a business and they have the best intentions when they start this thing, and they've kind of decided what they're going to do or whatever, but they haven't really ironed out the details. And when the money comes, it causes problems. So our guest today is going to tell you about contracts versus consequences. And what we're going to do is take a quick break. We're going to pay some bills. And when we come back, we're going to introduce you to our guest for today, Mr. Aaron Cartwright, manager of Cartwright PLLC. We'll be back in just a moment.
Business owner struggling with wearing every hat from custodian to comptroller? Do you know all the local, state, and federal tax reports you have to file and when? Is your business positioned to leverage credit? You're best at what you do when you're doing what you were designed to do. At Elite 8 Tax and Financial Services, we're designed to support your business from conception to succession. Let us optimize your business for the best tax advantages, payroll, accounting, and even virtual CFO services. Our Business Operations Success Suite is tailored to your business to meet you where you are and help you grow by freeing you of the tedious back office requirements. See how we can customize a plan for you at www.elite8financial.com or call us at 469-412-0056. Get balls. Get behind the sheet.
Every year, tens of thousands of Americans use do-it-yourself software to file their income taxes. While convenient, these tools lack what knowledgeable tax professionals bring to a tax return and open taxpayers up to a higher risk of IRS audits. Now you can have the convenience of do-it-yourself with the knowledge and security that licensed professionals bring to your tax matters. Elite 8 Tax and Financial Services handles tax matters for clients all across the United States through their secure portal at elite8financial.com. And now, for added convenience, you can use our new mobile app at elite8.taxwise.com. Get the experts, get security, get behind the shield. Elite 8 Tax and Financial Services.
So one of the questions was, how was our experience in comparison to with Elite 8 in comparison to other tax professional services? I think I'll just kind of turn that over to my husband and what he would think.
Yeah, for the military services, during the past, I was using service, online service throughout the military. And one thing I didn't like about it is not able to speak to someone live. And since I've been with Elite 8, having that person live in front of me has been great and rewarding. If me and my wife had to recommend Elite 8 to a family or friend, one of the strong attributes would be confidence. As a leader in the United States military, I've always been confident. And since my post-retirement, when I'm utilizing a business, I want to make sure they're confident in their answers and their tax preparation.
Get behind the shield.
I'm just happy to see you and me.
Welcome to Boss Talk Radio, brought to you by Elite 8 Tax and Financial Services, with your host, George Dandridge. The Business Operations Success Suite is the premier business talk radio show, bringing you entrepreneurs and top business leaders across every industry, sharing best practices, success tips, and the real stories behind entrepreneurship. Here's your host, the Texas tax expert, George Dandridge.
You seem to like my style. Oh, don't you worry, 'cause I'm gonna be.
And we are back in stride again. Without a further ado, we want to introduce you to the phenomenal Boss 2020 speaker and the host. And I don't want to say this wrong, so let me make sure I get it right. Where we at here? Municipal Money Monday is the podcast, and we encourage you guys to check that out. And welcome to Boss Talk Radio, Mr. Aaron Cartwright. Good morning, sir.
George, good morning. Let's do a quick sound check. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you just fine. Can you hear me over there?
I've been listening to you for the past 20 minutes.
Sounds good. I saw you when you popped on the screen.
I
It's
figured
a
I'd go
small
ahead and check
world.
out what was going on the show.
Yeah, it's a small world. One of my groups that I'm in, one of my colleagues saw the advertising. She was like, "That's my attorney too." I was like, "You gotta be kidding!" Small world. Latoya Owen, shout out to Latoya.
Yes, I love Latoya.
But
Latoya is one
here's
of
the
my
funny
favorite
part.
people.
She was like, here's the funny part, like she's been bragging on you for like 2 years before I even met you. So, and she never said, she always said, my attorney, my attorney, my attorney. So when we met, it was actually somebody else that referred me to you, and we started doing our thing or whatever, but I didn't know you were her attorney. And every now and then in this group, somebody talk about forms or securing this or that. You should talk to my attorney. So she's been bragging on you for a very, very long time. And, it says a lot when people have these great things to say about you. It says a lot about your character, about your work, about what you do. And I definitely appreciate you. You've been great to myself, Elite 8, and Boss, and have been a benefit to so many people just being able to call. Even just recently, it was a Super Bowl Sunday. the party I was at, somebody was talking to me about some business venture, and I just get excited about business, and like for me, it has no boundaries of day and time. So he was telling me this stuff, and I was like, huh, you know what? That's outside of my league, but I think I know somebody to do that. And I called you up, and I thought I was going to leave a voicemail, and you picked up, and you said, hey, you're probably talking to the only attorney and accountant that you can get on 9 o'clock on the Super Bowl Sunday, but we're here for it, and so
Pretty much.
I appreciate you always being there. And so tell everybody a bit about your background and specialties and what it is that you do. And
My
don't be modest this
specialties.
time.
Don't be modest this
Don't be
time.
modest
Okay,
this
well,
time.
well, I'll try and be as cocky and arrogant, as people tell me I am. But no, I'm Aaron Cartwright. I'm the business securities and construction attorney. So what I do is anything for the business side, I do end-to-end business stuff. So from startup and formation all the way through, contracts that you need, disputes that you may have with, anybody that decides to come at you sideways, to closing your business up. If you just want to wind it down, if you want to sell it off, I can help structure that part. With regard to the securities component, what I do is I tend to stick to private equity and hedge funds. I help people put together deals. So if there's, 2 or 3 people that want to get into real estate investing or something, and, maybe people just don't trust each other, as far as they can throw them. What I do is I help put together that deal so that when you wake up, you know that your money is where it should be. It's not going to go running off to somebody's account. That I make sure that there's, the forms and the proper agreements in place to make sure that the relationship is defined, so that, if there's a dispute later on, you don't run into court and try to tell the judge, well, he said, that doesn't work out. But I tend to help structure those deals to make that process easier for everyone. And with the construction law portion, I represent a lot of contractors in court. I absolutely love litigation. It's, my bread and butter, and the reason I wake up in the morning. But that part's just really fun. You spend the time to build a business. Somebody decides that they don't want to do something like pay you, or somebody decides that they want to hold you responsible for something that you didn't agree to, and that starts to escalate. You call me, and I stick myself in the middle of it.
Now that's the really cool part. People always ask me, well, what's an enrolled agent and why did you get into taxes and whatnot? And I always tell them, well, if you want the honest truth, despite the fact that I like helping people, I just really love arguing with the government. Big Brother's gonna probably talk to me on that.
That's why people come to you, because I can't talk to the IRS. I can help everything else out on the back end. But you enrolled agent types, y'all are the ones that y'all can actually show up in front of the tax man, and that's a skill set in and of itself.
Well, but you said you love litigation, and the thing is, and it actually led right up to the next question I was going to ask you, because oftentimes, and I get the logic behind it, where new business owners, they want to have their dollar go as far as it possibly can. And we do things now online that we would have never done 20 years ago. And one of those things is forming businesses. There's these online services that are so much less than what you or I would charge to do these things. But what I've found, and I don't like to promote any other company by name and or say anything bad about another company, but it's obvious some of the ones we're discussing. But what I found is that people don't really understand what they're getting when they use those services, but more importantly, they don't understand what they're not getting. So what's some of the risk rewards to using an online service versus an attorney, especially when there's more than one business owner?
So I'll just call one of them, by name, LegalZoom, Rocket Lawyer.
I wasn't going to.
I'm not going to insult them. They have a business model. It works for them. I mean, in this day and age, periodically there's a need for a low cost solution. If you are a sophisticated type and you've done it before and you just need a quick business setup, then by all means, feel free to use LegalZoom. But to answer your question, some of the things that you get, with a live person as opposed to some of these sites is that, number one, whenever you come to, me, I don't charge a consultation fee. And so if you come to me with a business setup that you want to do, then I'm going to walk you through all of the entity structures that we can possibly go through. And you can sit back and you can tell me exactly what it is that you're trying to do in the long run. So it's not just, today, tomorrow, next year, 5 years from now. It's how do you want to, pass this along to your family if need be. So for instance, with something like a series LLC, I don't know if LegalZoom and Rocket Lawyer do series LLCs, but if you're a real estate investor and you're buying properties, and are you buying them, if you buy them under one LLC and somebody goes along and, there's a nail hanging out, there's an unfortunate event, somebody gets cut by the nail that's hanging out. Well, under one LLC, when you get sued, because I can tell you what it's going to look like when you get sued because I deal with these lawsuits, all of your assets, like all the assets of that company are subject to a judgment. And that includes all the assets that come from the other, any other properties that you may have. So the LegalZooms, the Rocket Lawyers, they don't sit down and they can't tell you that because they can't give you legal advice. And then as you decide that you want to pass that down to your family or you want to pass that off to your family, what does that look like? Do you want to just bring your son, daughter in, add them to the operating agreement? Now the company's theirs along with, the tax burden that you, George, get to deal with? Or do you want to, put that in a trust? If it's large enough, do you want to put that in a trust, have a property manager do it, and then just let, your children receive the revenues from, what you built after you pass on? That's another thing that LegalZoom, Rocket Lawyer, the internet services, they can't really give you that, short to long term and after you're gone perspective.
Do you guys already see the value that's coming to the Boss 2020 seminar? I mean, that was the tip of the iceberg, and if in that you didn't come away with the value of hiring an attorney versus using these, and the same thing applies to, when it comes to tax matters. There is an audience, there's a group that business model serves, but for many of you that's trying to save that dollar, you're costing yourself way more because you're missing out on so much. So I'm one of those people. I believe in corporate mission statements, policies, procedures, and most importantly, prevention. And I see many small businesses skip all of those steps. They decided on a service they want to provide, and they're off to the races, and they're more concerned about the quality of their business card or the appearance of their website than they are all of these formalities. Give us one of the more tragic incidents that you've come across when something like this happens and the litigation hits the fan.
So this is one of those situations where an ounce of prevention like more than outweighs a pound of cure, and I can give you that just based on my prices alone. So you come to me to register an LLC, I'm going to charge you $300 for the state, $300 for me. Well, let's say that you're a contractor. I've had a contractor in this particular situation before, very unfortunate and also not uncommon. But what happens is, you're a contractor, or you're a person, you've got a thing that you do, and that's what you know how to do, and you're not terrible at it. You're, probably really good at it. Well, you go out and you engage with the market and you're, out there doing your contracting thing. You go out and you say, okay, I don't want to spend the $300 to do it myself, $350 to do it with LegalZoom, or $600 to do it with Aaron. I'm just going to file a $25 DBA with the state of Texas. Okay. Well, a DBA doesn't actually protect you from anything. You and your company are the same entity. All right. So you go out as a contractor, you engage with the market, somebody decides that they want to sue you. Well, let's say that you were only going to be making, $3,000 on a $15,000 job, right? Well, all of a sudden, lawsuit rolls down the line. They're claiming that, you did something wrong, you harmed them, some part of their home wasn't usable, whatever it is that they can come up with to justify in their petition. Well, they sue you, and the amount of the judgment that they're asking for is $20,000 plus attorney's fees, or they throw something like the Deceptive Trade Practices Act violation out there, which allows them treble damages. So what was a $15,000 job for you, $15,000 job for you that you were only making $3,000 on, now turns into a $45,000 problem, and that's before attorney's fees. Okay, well, if you're in an LLC, or if you're in an LLC or really any corporate structure at all, you spent the $300 with the state of Texas to register your business. Now you're protected. Okay. And what I mean by that is that when they sue you, the liability stops with the company. So let's say that the only money that you have left is your $3,000 that you made because $12,000 went to your labor and material, right? Well, whenever you get me to go over and negotiate with opposing counsel or the opposing party, what I can say is congratulations, because there was no fraud here. It was just something that, your client is saying was a bad job. All the liability stops with the company. So you can't go after my client's personal assets. Okay. So if you had a house that your parents gave you when they passed along, 3 cars, like you were married. So the judgment proof statutes say that you can have 1 car per driving age adult in your house. Well, you've got 2 cars, you and your wife or husband or whatnot, and you've got a motorcycle. Well, they can come after the motorcycle in the judgment, right? If you've just got a DBA. If you've registered the LLC, then they can only come after whatever assets are left in the company. And for a lot of people, that's not a lot at all. Like there's practically nothing there. At that point in time, you're in a much better position because even if you lose the lawsuit, there are 2 parts to a lawsuit. The first part is winning. The second part is collecting. If they can't sue you personally, the only thing they can do is go after the assets of the company. And if there's nothing there, they're stuck with $0. But back to kind of the beginning of this here, you spend money to create the corporation or the business wherever you're going to create it through, and that cost that you have to pay up front saves you from having to pay a litigator like me $1,500 to $2,000 just to start the case, couple $1,000 more for discovery, couple $1,000 more for trial, and then an extra $1,000, for mediation and the way it goes. I mean, it gets expensive, or it can get expensive, versus you just being able to tell them, hey, I registered my business, I've maintained the corporate formalities, you can sue me all you want, but there's nothing there.
Amazing information. And I had a situation where someone called me about they didn't position themselves for success, basically, and they were about to enter this agreement, but knew that the company would only engage them if they were some sort of a formal entity, but they were in one of those states where it's a much lengthier process. And so they were going to be walking away from the table with the check, and they were like, well, can we do a DBA and then later convert to this? And then I was like, I don't think that's a good idea. But more importantly, you don't have an attorney and you're about to go sit, you're going to go and sit down and try to hash out this deal. And, what you're concerned with is whether or not you can cash this check right away. You're not thinking through that clearly, and I think you're going to run into some problems. I really suggest you call an attorney right away. And they weren't in the state that you service, and I didn't know anyone there. I was like, but yeah, you need to reach out and call an attorney right away, which actually leads right up to my next question. So, you know, again, in the mindset of savings and trying to stretch a dollar, I see a lot of people try to write up their own agreements and whatnot when they're engaging in business. You don't use your face inside voice, your facial expressions.
I don't have a poker face. I don't have a poker face. I react, and people, whenever I'm sitting in front of clients, like they know they've messed up, but don't worry, I'm here to help.
Well, you know, they do this and they don't use, you know, they use a lot of layman's terms and whatnot. And I was once recently in a very passionate debate, and I would like to see if you can put this thought process to rest. So there's this thought process. I can't call it fallacy yet because I could be wrong. But there's this thought process in the market that you don't need to engage an attorney in fairly simple agreements when it's not involving trust or whatever. It's just, you know, business to business. And the reason being is because the spirit of the contract will hold up in court. And I thought to myself, that's the most flummadiddle thing I've ever heard, because if that other person shows up with a pit bull attorney, he's going to eat through this thing that you just wrote up that you didn't know anything about. But is there any truth to that? Is the spirit of a contract enough to carry you through litigation?
No. So that there is a common misconception. I wouldn't call it a misconception, okay? But so one of the things that I frequently tell people, and this is going to sound terrible, okay? But one of the things that I frequently tell people is that judges are imperfect people, juries are imperfect people, attorneys are imperfect people. Sometimes you get worse than imperfect people. You get people who will deliberately attempt to mislead. Okay. So as far as spirit of a contract, you know, goes, that works out well and good if everybody, you know, has an agreement of what's going on. But what I like to tell people is that assume that the person on the opposite side of you is going to lie. Like 100% of the words that are coming out of their mouth will be absolute lies. The person that you see sitting on the stand talking to the judge is not the same person that you were dealing with in a business the day before. Okay. So one of the things that you need to be, or that people need to be aware of, is that when you go up to a court, because the judge and the juries are imperfect people, you've got he said versus she said, you know, and the judge is going to be like, okay, well, they're going to look for several things. They're going to look for the course of dealings. They're going to look for receipts. They're going to look for transactional history. They're going to look for anything on paper that's solid that will tell them what the actual parties agreed to. Okay. And so as far as putting things down, you know, in a clear way of understanding, that actually works. So number one, good for putting it down on paper. That is absolutely excellent. That's what you should be doing. There are a couple of elements to a contract. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to make sure, oh my God, I can't think of it right now. George, I'm blanking on your show. Okay, offer, acceptance, consideration. All right. So the contract itself should show that there is an intention between both people to agree that both people are going to do something. Okay, that's usually evidenced by the writing itself. The consideration that's in between it, or that's in the contract, is what am I giving you? What are you giving me? Most of the time, it's money for a service or money for a good. Sometimes it could be an exchange of services. I've written barter contracts before. It works out. But yeah, most of the time, both parties are doing something for each other. And then the other thing that you would need is acceptance, okay? And so that's when both parties sign the agreement. Where people start getting in trouble is when they will pull contracts off the internet that they aren't fully aware of, that bind them to things that they don't know about, okay? My most favorite example of this are arbitration clauses. Arbitration clauses are all the rage. Okay. Whenever you find a contract on the internet, 9 times out of 10, my made up statistic, you're going to find an arbitration clause. Okay. And so what an arbitration clause is, an arbitration is separate from, yes, templates aren't solutions. Templates are great guidelines, but you should pay attention to what exactly it is that's in there. But to the arbitration, an arbitration clause, basically arbitration is a court system that's outside of the court system. So you are buying a judge, and that judge is the one that's hearing your case. Okay, and this is something that people will agree to in a template contract without ever actually knowing what's going on there. Well, because it's outside of the regular court system, the fines are far higher. So you're paying your attorney's time. There's a chance that you can have costs assessed against you, and the arbitration judge himself will start at anywhere between $1,500 and $2,000 and then go up from there, because everything that you do, or not everything that you do, but frequently you will have to have the judge make decisions, and the judge is going to charge you $350 to $500+ an hour. So these are the type of things that people should be aware of whenever they just start grabbing templates. But as far as losing myself here, maybe I talk too much, but will the spirit of the contract hold up? Not generally. Okay, you want to make sure that there's something on paper. You want to make sure that, you know, it's clear what each party is agreeing to. If there's something that you don't understand, don't agree to it. I've grabbed templates off the internet before, modified them. If there was something that I didn't understand or that wasn't needed, I just pulled it out. Because at the end of the day, the court's only going to enforce what's in front of them.
So let me ask this question. When you were talking about the arbitration agreements, and I've only set in those type of settings when I was an employee for a company or whatever. But based on what you were saying, is that to suggest that, I mean, it almost sounds as if the company that provided the arbitration agreement essentially has already paid for the decision from the judge almost. Am I, you know, am I about right on that? I mean, it almost sounds like you automatically lose. You know?
You have really good instincts with regard to what you just said. So that is, I'm not going to say, because I would never, you know, impugn the reputation of a judge that I didn't, you know personally. And even then, like, imperfect people are imperfect people. But there is a lot of times where it's possible for you to get forced into an arbitration agreement where, let's say the party on the side is a larger, more well-established company that's used to dealing with those types of things. They know a judge, that judge knows them. And I'm not going to say that that usually leads to a more favorable decision, but, you know, people know each other.
More favorable decision.
You know, humans are imperfect. I'm not going to say that there's bias, but if I know one person and I don't know the other person, I mean, if the other person has, you know, at least a character for truthfulness, I might be inclined to believe them before I believe this other side. And it's all about how the argument gets spun. But there are things that you can do to avoid that. So you can say, all right, well, you guys are going to pick an arbitrator, or you guys are going to pick an arbitration judge. I'm going to pick an arbitration judge. And then together, our arbitration judges are going to pick a third arbitration judge. The only requirement is that that third arbitration judge hasn't worked with either party. Okay, so there are some controls that you can put on there. You can split the costs. Usually, you know, people want to split the cost. Sometimes there's an instance where one company just has more money, so they pay for it. But then again, I mean, they're also maybe paying for somebody that they've used before. But yeah, you can split the cost so that the judge and the arbitration people know, or the arbitration setup knows that it's not coming from just one side. So not only one side is paying the bill here. But you just don't want to get roped into something like that without knowing exactly what's going on anyway. It's better for larger companies, not for smaller ones.
And that's what I was going to ask, because I see a lot of times where, you know, smaller companies, and as we were just saying, you know, they're trying to save this money, and I've seen them use abstract NDAs and arbitration agreements that they've kind of pulled offline. And I don't think they're really aware of what it is they're getting themselves into. And so from a, say, a contracting standpoint, someone that's coming on to the company to provide a particular service or whatever, is it really even in their best interest to sign that agreement in advance of the job? And if so, is it better for them to make the attorney investment of reviewing that arbitration agreement before, I mean, taking their mind off the check that they may get, and thinking, hey, something could happen?
So with that one, I wouldn't tell people, like you need an attorney for everything, because we do get expensive. But what I would urge is have a threshold. So if you're in a contract to deliver, $400 worth of cupcakes, are you going to come pay an attorney, $250 to review your contract for delivery of $400 worth of cupcakes? No, that eats into your profits. You've got nothing left at the end of that point in time. If you're about to sign a 3-year lease where you're paying, $1,500 a month, and you are a first-time business owner, yeah, maybe you want to have somebody look that over just to kind of give you an assessment of what's going on. Because if your business fails in the first year and you have to try and exit that lease, you may very well be on the hook for the remaining 24 months of the lease. And you want to know, okay, is this going to arbitration? Is this going to mediation? Is there a liquidated damages clause in there? Like, what else is in here? So it just establish a threshold of how much can I pay out of pocket before it starts to hurt, so maybe $1,500. I'm throwing out an arbitrary number, but just based on the type of business that you have, under this amount, we're going to keep it super simple, not involve a lawyer. Over this amount, we're at least going to want to give somebody a call and see what they say.
Gotcha. So tell us a little bit about Municipal Money Mondays.
Give me 1 second. Let me fix something on my phone here. Municipal Money Monday. So one of the things that I do, and this is just kind of like it's a project that I started because I found out that I really enjoyed this area of law. Because I deal with a lot of construction contractors, obviously I have people who want to get connected to government contracts, right? Well, as the attorney, it's my job to understand those connections. Much like yourself, George, it's our job as professionals to be connected. If you've got a problem, come to me. There's a likelihood I know someone that can help you solve your issue. And I mean, we can just send you right to that person, it's vetted and whatever. But I wanted to be the person that contractors would come to whenever it came down time to finding government contracts. So I went to a couple of different classes, met with some of the people in the contracting department in Dallas, Irving, a couple of other cities. Shout out to Laura Hurtado and Deborah McVeigh. I absolutely love them both. They are wonderful and amazing people, and they know so much about how to get involved with the city contracting. And they taught me. So what I now do is I go through and I review 60 different cities in the North Texas area every week. I'm pretty late this week. I might get around to that today, hopefully. But I review 60 cities, and I go through and I check their procurement departments. So I know within 7 days, usually when a new contract pops up. And what I do is I get on Facebook and I talk about it for, 10 to 15 minutes, just telling people what's available in which city in the 60 cities that I review. Well, people can then, since it's public information, you can, go to the City of Frisco's procurement website and figure out how to get on there for yourself, or you can drop by my office, pick up the phone and give me a call, and I can help you with the paperwork, the legal side, the back end, all the things that you have to fill out, and just the understanding that you would need in order to submit this bid. Really, all you have to do is just quote the job, and I handle the rest. But yeah, every single week I try and do this just to kind of help putting money in people's pockets, because I mean, yes, attorneys can get expensive, but if I'm helping you put money back in your pocket before you actually need me, you get on a $100,000 contract, you're going to be kind of happy to pay my fees at that point in time if they're needed.
I tell people this all the time when it comes to the hiring of professionals, whether it's enrolled agency, PAs, attorneys, wealth managers, bankers, etc. The true professionals are going to provide value in such a way that you won't miss what you pay them because it's going to come right back to you, in some way, shape, or form, even if it's like what you said earlier, just prevention. So I've been finding that this conversation is coming up a lot lately with the promotion of opportunity zones and hub and things of that nature. Um, you deal with this a lot more frequently, though. What are a few things that small to mid-sized businesses should do to position themselves to obtain government contracts, and how should they go about it?
So this, I know that I'm on your show, and I'm not trying to deliberately plug either you or I, but for anyone paying attention, you need a law guy, you need a money guy. And you need both of those because you have to come correct for the municipalities. For any government entity, all of your I's have to be dotted, all of your T's have to be crossed. If there's some financial stuff in your books that you need to clean up, get it cleaned up. You need to definitely have your entity ready. So you need to have your entity ready to go. If you don't have that before you start looking at contracts, you're already behind the ball on that one. What else? So the other thing is that your timeline needs to be a little bit longer than what you may ordinarily think. Municipalities, government entities, they don't move at the same speed as regular corporations and regular individuals do. It's a lot slower. So number one, this shouldn't be your first project. Number two, you are going to need a way to fund or finance yourself because government pays on net 30 and usually they'll request a request for payment every 30 days. So if you do work, you stick a shovel in the ground on January 1st, you don't get to send that request for payment until January 31st. And then the government has until February 28th or 29th, whichever one it is that year, or 30 days after, to pay you. So if you don't have enough money to get from January 1st to February 29th, March 1st, whatever, that's not the type of contract that's for you. Also, your perspective has to be in line with what's there. So larger government contracts, smaller companies won't get that entire thing. But what you need to be doing is you need to be reaching out, you need to be networking because you've got prime contractors, you've got other larger, more established organizations. Sorry, I keep turning my head because it looks like I'm tilted in my camera here. But network with larger contracts, network with the people in the purchasing departments at the cities. They are such an amazing resource. But get to know the people that are playing in these arenas. So when this opportunity comes up, you're better situated to take advantage of it. Also, on that note, there are ways. So let's say that there's something that you want. Let's say that you are a caterer. I'll use a super small business like catering. So you're a catering company and you just want a government contract. Well, a government contract for a catering company is going to be something like delivering sandwiches to a prison. That's one of the contracts that came up in Dallas at one point in time. So you're going to be delivering sandwiches to the jail. Well, first of all, you need to be networking with the people who are in that purchasing area so that you know when that contract is likely to come back up. Okay. When you know when the expiration period is on the current contract and when the new one is likely to be reissued, what you can do is you can send out a public information request or public information request or open records request. There we go. You send out an open records request. What you're doing is you're telling the city, I want to see what contract you signed the last time this opportunity was available. And so if they signed a contract saying like, okay, we need 500 sandwiches a month, we're paying, $2 a sandwich, so we'll pay you, $1,000 each month. Now okay, if I'm going to go after that contract, I know what type of price range I'm going to be competing with. Can I produce a sandwich for less than $2? or my sandwich is high end and they require $2.50. You know, if they're high end and you require $2.50 a sandwich, but the government's only paying $2, maybe that's not the type of contract that you want. But if there's a sandwich that you can produce for under $2 and still make money, maybe that's something that you want to look into. But then you'll be able to better prepare. But again, that goes back to the networking, getting to know the people in the space and really understanding what it is that the government looks for in some of their contracts.
Now, you mentioned that it
Did I answer
shouldn't
that
be.
question, or did I wander all over the place?
No, you really did. You really answered it. But to go a little bit deeper into that thing, one of the things you mentioned, you said it probably shouldn't be your first project. And you also spoke to networking and really getting to know people inside of the purchasing department and whatnot. But one part that you kind of went past really fast was talking about networking with if you're a smaller company, maybe networking with the larger contractors, because and I've recently come across this. I had no idea this market was that big, but there's a lot of big companies that get these contracts, and part of the contract is that they have to hire so many smaller companies to provide a part of the service. How do you recommend or propose that business owners go about connecting with those, for lack of better words, captains of industry, and taking themselves out of the box? You know, because like you just said, when it comes to the caterer, I know a lot of people who do catering will think, you know, I want to deal with wedding planners and things, but not thinking, hey, people in jail have to eat. You know,
Nice,
how
good, guaranteed pay schedule too.
right? So how can people really like find or get to those captains of industry beyond those gatekeepers and train themselves to think out of the box to really kind of understand that you may have a service that's applicable to something within this grand scheme? You know, I first saw this down in New Orleans on the movie sets. It was amazing. I mean, it's not government contract, but it was kind of like the same thing. These production companies would hire so many different entities on the set, and this is all of these credits you see going up at the end of the films that we don't sit around for. But it was just amazing how much money was floating around. So when, you know, I'll tell you guys, when they say a movie costs, you know, 50, 60 million to produce, it's not just the cars that are blowing up. You know, these are like
It's the
real.
food for the actors.
It's a
I mean,
lot
you're
of
spending
services
$1 million
being
on
provided.
catering.
You know, it's a lot of service. So what do you recommend? Should people move about that and try to get that accomplished?
Okay, so there are two approaches that I could recommend to that one. Okay, and it's all very industry specific. So, but the first thing you have to do is you have to start talking. You have to start asking questions. George, if they're asking you, what do I need to do? You know, if you bring them to me and they ask me what it is that they need to do, like, you know, we can let them know what it is that they need to do. But I don't know who you are if you don't show up at my doorstep. Like, it's that simple. Okay, there's
Showing
a lot.
up is 50% of everything. I keep telling people this.
Absolutely.
No one is going to knock on your
Absolutely.
door and say, hey, is there a business owner here that would like to be successful?
Absolutely, because and one of the kind of just side story on that one is that, you know, you run into people, and I think you may have run into this yourself, but people who will go out and say, okay, well, you know, I'm gonna put my wife on this as a 51% owner of the business, you know, because I heard that, you know, like if it was a woman-owned business, then that opens up more opportunities. Well, then they don't know what those opportunities look like. Like, that's when you need to start reaching out and asking questions. What does this do for me? You know, what are the benefits of having this done this way? But yeah, so that's a completely separate subject. But yeah, the two approaches for getting out. Okay, so these are very industry specific, but on larger projects, what you will have are things called pre-bid meetings, okay? So if you're doing a $10 million road construction project, there is going to be a pre-bid meeting. And at some of those pre-bid meetings will be mandatory, okay? So if you find a mandatory pre-bid meeting and there's something that has to do with your industry in there, go to it. And the reason that you're gonna go to it is because in there are going to be massive companies with their little one representative, and then you can just ask them and say, hey, do you use subcontractors on this job? Okay, and I'll give you a specific example on this one. So for road construction is usually a multi-million-dollar job, right? But within road construction, you've got a lot of individual components. So you've got your saw cut guy who's cutting the concrete. You know, you've got your demolition guy who's pulling it away. You've got your like obviously you've got your architects, your engineers, but you've got your plumbers, you've got your guys who are relocating your city utilities. You have your landscapers, okay? Because the sidewalks and the medians, those have to be taken care of. I mean, cities put a lot of money into growing some of those trees that you see on the side of the road or in the middle of the road. Sometimes they don't want those trees destroyed. So what do they have to do? They have to hire a landscaper to come in and pull those trees out. Well, landscaping, sorry to say it, it doesn't require a whole lot of major investment, okay? So you've got a crew, a truck, and the right equipment. You know, there's a high likelihood, or not a high likelihood, but there's a likelihood that you could get a part of a multi-million-dollar contract just because you have the equipment and the people that know how to get a tree out of the ground without completely destroying it. Okay. So again, way number one to get out there and start meeting these people is through the pre-bid meetings. All right. So a large construction company is going to be wanting to sub out some of the stuff. They're not going to handle tree trimming, or they're not going to handle tree removal, or they're not going to handle flower beds. But the city's paying $50,000 to have flower beds placed on their medians. So that's something that you want to look into. You know, the larger company will throw that off because it's like, we're getting $10 million on this deal. $50,000 is change. So go get it. So that's way number one. Way number two is kind of it's a modified joint venture structure. Don't worry about that terminology. But what you're doing is you're partnering up with someone who's got a larger capacity than you do. Okay. And some of the ways that I've seen this done are in smaller projects, like smaller pieces of projects. There was a garment producer I knew at one point in time, or somebody who does like logos on shirts and stuff. Well, police departments need that stuff all the time.
Wow.
So what you do there is, if you're in the industry, you know, there may not be a pre-bid meeting with that, but what you do is, if my capacity is only 200 shirts a month, or, you know, I know people that I can only get this deal right here. Well, I can't produce on an order for 2,000 to 4,000 shirts in under 30 or 40 days. I can't do it. Okay. But what I do have going for myself are my DBE certifications, which is your disadvantaged business entity or whatnot, you know, minority owned, woman owned, small business, SBA certified and all that. Well, you know somebody else, right? So you sit there and you tell them, look, I'm going for this contract. We need to produce 4,000 shirts in a month. I can only produce 200. Okay. I know that you can produce 6,000 shirts in a month. I'm going to go get the contract, but I need you to basically sign on with me so that we together can get this. You know, you'll be paid for 3,800 shirts a month. I'll be paid for 200 shirts a month, you know, and people might say something like, oh, well, you know, well, that wouldn't exactly be fair. You have to think about the fact that a small contract, a small city contract for a small business is a lot larger than what people think. Like if you're doing flower beds and you do $2,000 a job for a corporate flower bed, a city comes to you and says, hey, we've got $50,000 worth of flower beds that need to be placed. Yes, you're only getting $50,000 on a $10 million job, but it's $50,000 on one customer as opposed to everything else. So on the t-shirt thing, it's instead of your ordinary 5, 6, 10 custom or 10 shirt order, you're getting 200 shirts. and you get a guaranteed payment because cities have to pay, government entities, so they're obligated to pay. There will never be a question of payment as long as you produce on it, right? So that's huge for smaller businesses. So just to recap, because I know I'm long-winded, way number one is you go to the pre-bid meetings and you start meeting the larger contractors and you follow up with them. You have to follow up with them because you're not the only one in this industry. Way number two, you look for larger partners in your industry that, you know, they're not going to show up on a pre-bid meeting, but you want to be able to list them next to you whenever you're writing your proposal, so that you're together, y'all have the capacity to give the city what it is that they want. Hopefully y'all got some.
Hey, the value of Boss Talk Radio, if you're not, you know, taken away from this, I don't know what you're doing with your life. You know, hey, Aaron, that was incredible information. And you can see Aaron also at the Boss 2020 seminar. If you think he gave you some game today, wait till we unleash him on stage. You can get tickets for
When anybody can ask anything.
right, because we're also going to have the panel after all the speakers. So if you guys haven't bought your tickets today yet, the information for sponsorship and everything is at the bottom of the screen, and you can buy tickets at boss-2020.eventbrite.com. If you missed the pre-sale tickets, I don't know what to tell you. I waited to bring the speakers on. Next week we're going to have a couple of other Boss 2020 speakers. We're going to have Jillian Verdon, and we're also going to have Johannes Harrison, because this is the month of money, and so we're going to tell you how to get the money, how to protect the money, you know, and how to invest the money. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Aaron, thank you very much for coming on. I know you have a very busy schedule, and hopefully
I
none
only
of our
filed one
audience.
lawsuit this morning.
Hopefully, none of our audience has to see you on the opposite side of the courtroom or whatever.
Get me before the other side does. Thank you for that, George. I'm going to use that one as my corporate motto now. Get me before the other side does.
And tell them how to get you. Tell them how to get you if they need an attorney in the state of Texas.
Gotcha. If y'all need an attorney in the state of Texas, my email is Aaron, AARON, at EAClawyer.com. My phone number is 214-789-1354. That line comes directly to me, although I may have to, you know, pass them off to my assistant to get us scheduled at some point in time. And then y'all can follow me on Facebook. The Facebook tag is a little bit long, but it's Aaron Cartwright III, attorney at law, PLLC. But if you just search for Aaron Cartwright, you know, you pull up that business page, it's the one where I'm in a nice suit. You don't get me in a nice suit unless I'm in court.
Yeah. So when you see Aaron in a suit, you know, if he's not on your side, you have problems.
There will be issues.
Thank you again for joining us, Aaron, and we look forward to hearing much more from you at the Boss 2020 seminar.
Indeed. Thank you, George, for inviting me, and I look forward to seeing y'all on February 29th.
All righty. Thank you, Aaron.
All right.
Thank you
Adios.
guys for joining another episode of Boss Talk Radio. Again, if you need tickets for the Boss 2020 seminar, you can get those at, it sounds like my mic went out here. There we go. So if you need tickets for the Boss 2020 seminar, you can get those at boss-2020.eventbrite.com. And go and subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out our Boss Motivation series as well. It's all about your health, happiness, and self-actualization as a business owner. Until next time, you are tuned in to Boss Talk Radio with your host, George Dandridge. We'll see you guys soon. It's official. The Business Operations Success Seminar is coming February 29, 2020. That's right, Boss 2020 is coming to Dallas, Texas, February 29th. Business owners, you cannot afford to miss this. This is not a pitch from the stage event. You'll hear from attorneys, bankers, wealth managers, CPAs, and more on how to properly form, run, profit, and exit your business. Learn how to secure funding, tax techniques of the wealthy, asset protection, and much more. Pre-sale tickets available now at boss-2020.eventbrite.com. Not in Dallas? You can still benefit. Boss 2020 will be streaming live. Buy your streaming ticket at boss-2020.eventbrite.com. For vendor and sponsor opportunities, dial 510-459-7732. Get behind the shield.